Friends. Growing up, I had two close friends. One was called Richard and the other was called Stuart Wright. Stuart loved his name because he could say to all of the girls that he was Mr. Wright, and they loved his charm. Richard was the most handsome. He was 1 meter and 85 centimeters tall, and his father was from Sri Lanka, so he had an all-year tan. But Richard was so shy that he didn't have his first girlfriend until he was 21 years old. Stuart was next, not as tall as Richard, but with his blonde hair, blue eyes, and amazing confidence, he had more girlfriend than Richard and I put together. Then there was me, not very tall, curly hair and muscles. I know, not now. I looked like their bodyguard, and the only girls who were attracted to me were the weird ones, that were goth, punk, or looked like mobsters' wives. We finished upper school and started university at Cambridge. We were studying different things, so we didn't see each other in the classroom anymore. But we soon met up after lectures had finished and started our mischief with the other students and teachers. I was the one of us that had a car at the time, and so I would drive everyone around and we would sing and play tricks on people. One day, we put blackcurrant juice into my car's windscreen washer bottle, and then as we drove along, we would squirt people with juice and turn their clothes purple. We used to chain the students' bikes with different locks and readjust the seats so that people could not reach the pedals, or tighten the brakes so that it was harder to ride. For the teachers, we would mix their tea and coffee together so that they had an awful drink, or change the sugar to salt. For the teachers who we hated, we would let the air out of their car tires. I loved my car very much. It was a Ford Cortina 2.0 GLS in racing red. It was super fast and had a sound system so loud that you could hear us coming from 1 kilometer away. We would drive along with the windows down, posing. At the time, we thought we were cool. We had many races with other cars, and we used to communicate with the other friends via CB, Citizens Band Radio. Mobile phones were not common at that time. One evening, we heard girls' voices on the CB, and so we arranged to meet them at a local pub. Stuart warned us that they may be fugly, and so when we arrived, we took away the CB aerial and then sat and waited. About 30 minutes later, a car drove into the parking area and we could see 3 girls inside. They described themselves as beautiful blondes, but the girls who arrived were not fitting that description at all. Gargoyles would be a better description. We sat there and watched as they kept picking up the CB and talking. We could only just hear them as we had turned our receiver down and the aerial was in the boot. After about 10 minutes, it went quiet, and we looked around at the car containing the 3 trolls. To our horror, we saw them getting out of the car and walk towards us. Inside, they looked bad, but then seeing their bodies, well, I started the car and drove like a madman away from that pub and never looked back. A few weeks later, we were driving down a dark road late at night when we saw 2 girls standing at the side of the road. They waved at us, and as we approached, I slowed down the car and stopped. Before I could say anything, these girls had already jumped into my car. They were beautiful and wearing very sexy clothes. I could not look around much because I was driving, but my friends seemed happy. They wanted to go to a nightclub, and so I drove about 10 kilometers to the nearest one. On the way, I saw Stuart kissing one of the girls in the back of my car, and the other girl was touching Richard. We arrived at the nightclub, and they jumped out of the car and ran inside. Then Richard started touching his neck and screaming like a vampire had bitten him. "My necklace!" he screamed. The girl had taken his gold necklace from his neck without him realizing. Then Stuart started to snicker. "The other one took your Garfield." I turned around and it was true. The Garfield teddy that used to hang on my window was gone. We got out of the car and ran to the door of the club, but they would not let us in, and the bouncers were just too big to fight, so we returned to the car. "Why didn't you stop her?" I asked Stuart. He replied, "Well, we were kissing, and I just didn't care." I never saw the girls or Garfield ever again, but the memory of that night will last forever.